Hey y'all, hope you're doing good today. And I want to start by saying I'm sorry I don't have a microphone, so you may have to turn the volume up a little bit more than normal, but hopefully you can hear me. So I feel very inspired to share a message that has come together really beautifully. And sorry, I thought I heard somebody at the door. I think it's just people outside. So yesterday I started reading this book, and I've shared it with you all before. I've read it I think a couple of times in the past. I know once, but I think when I started it yesterday, I'm starting my third reading as far as I can remember. But I've gone through the first, I believe, 3 chapters, which are they're very short. And I wanted to share a little bit of what I have taken away from that. And I also want to share some other related things of inspiration, specifically some music. Okay, so we'll start with the music actually. And I think I'm going to make a playlist for the summer. And I already have, if you're a new subscriber or you're not aware of it, I already have a music playlist. And so you can just search my playlists for that. I only have a few playlists. And these songs are probably already in that playlist. But let me start by sharing this song. It's by Geminelle, and it's G-E-M, Geminelle. And it's called Find Your Tribe, and it's a really cool song. It's very different. She talks about, kind of feeling lost and just wandering, and she's not sure where home is anymore and things like that. And she's starting to feel like it's time to figure that out. And I love how they all tell a story, these lyrics. But she talks about echoes from the other side. And I believe it says, echoes from the other side strike me like a ray of light. And it kind of gives me like Plato's cave vibes. And I think that, as we're going through life and all these things happen, and it's, they're very, very difficult. You've heard a lot of people probably talk about it's not what happens, it's how you respond to it. And that's hard because some things that happen, it's kind of like, how can you look on the bright side of some things? It truly feels impossible, right? And I'm not trying to make an absolute statement with all things that we experience and say that we can approach them all the exact same way or anything like that. But I do just want to share some things and hope that you're inspired by it, okay? But, in Plato's cave, the whole concept is that the ultimate reality is kind of not within our reach. It's outside of the cave. And therefore, all that we have access to, this is kind of the meat of the story, okay? The whole point of it. All that we really have access to and really understanding what all this is about is there's shadows on the inside of the wall of the cave. And we are the people on the inside of the cave, right? And we, often just take those shadows as being it, the end all be all of reality, okay? When the truth is, it's not. The bigger reality is outside of the cave, right? And I think this is important when we go through hard times, especially, always, but especially during those times, because these hard times feel like the end all be all that, is going to define our life. And it's hard. I've got a t-shirt that says emotions distort reality. And that's hard too, because if something feels very strongly to you, like a great injustice and it may be, but it's hard to move beyond that is my point. It can feel like that's it. This thing or, these many, many years of things that have happened are going to now, from this point forward, define your life. and it can sort of feel like it sucks the motivation right out of you. You know what I mean? And so I personally find inspiration from others' stories. That's why I've shared before. I love to hear other people's real life experiences, you know. And I also truly believe that there's more, just like in Plato's cave. I find it helpful to consider the fact that that's only a small portion of the greater whole of things. And sometimes we can be made to believe that we're insignificant, but you know, the Bible says that God knows even the number of hairs on our head. So we're not insignificant. And that's really important to remember too. And not to mention that spiritually speaking, which is really the eternal part of us, is that, you know, we are a part of God. And that's something that I kind of have I take kind of an issue with. It feels like people who, and this is not a blanket statement, I'll just say some, okay? Some people who have a belief in God, they approach it like they're separate. But through the Christian lens, you know, Jesus taught that we are all a part of him and God. And he says, I am the vine and you are the branches. And that's where the Holy Spirit comes into play, where that, you know, is what is inside of us, the God part, the God spark that is inside of us. And so that's going to be important as we continue to go through this discussion here. But that just reminds me of Plato's cave, not letting those shadows in front of you, okay, the darkness, the, you know, dark night of the soul, whatever it is you're going through. Remember that there's daylight out there, even if you can't see it outside the cave. And that's important. Perspective is really, really important. So she says in the song, now I can't explain it, what has just happened to me. My mind is expanded. I finally recognize free. And that's powerful. It's kind of like sometimes when I'll have a shift out of a dark state of mind, I realize that it's literally just an issue of recognition. You know, a lot of times. It's just an issue for me anyway, of recognition. That there is a freedom. And that's, I've mentioned it many times on my channel, a book by Viktor Frankl. I can't even think of the name of it right now. It's a powerful book. Just look it up, Viktor Frankl. And he's talking about his experience in a concentration camp and how he was able to maintain his sanity, and that there's one part of a man, a person, that cannot be taken away. Okay? And to me, it's right here in this song, the recognition. I finally recognize free. There's a freedom within each one of us that is a choice. Now, it may come a whole lot easier to us when things are easy on the outside world and the physical. I mean, sure. It may be way, way more difficult when things in our external reality are more difficult. But it's still a choice. There's a freedom within. I mean, this man went through the most horrific circumstances, and he made the decision, he made the choice to stay conscious of and aware of and not give up this inner freedom. Which, what is it? It's the freedom to choose. How did he, I don't remember exactly the words that he used. It's the freedom to choose how we feel in any moment, okay, or what we think in any moment. It's that untouchable piece of us. And I liken that to the God spark. And And, I think for people to go really deep into spirituality, I think they can experience this on a much more magical level. And it's kind of like getting to experience the mystery of God working through you and in your life. So on that note, in this book, I didn't realize it. Again, it's been many years since I've read it, but the first few chapters are really in support, even though he doesn't mention this. But to me, they are really in support of, I believe it's Romans chapter 8, verse 28, that says all things work together for the good of those who love him. And I'm going to share a little bit about that. So you'll see in a minute. But yeah, I finally recognized Free. Back to this song. She says, all of this weight I've been carrying and wondering why. So, and there's more to it. It's a great song. I just highly recommend it. It's got a great rhythm. It's cool. There's another song called Cellular Upgrade. And I don't know how to pronounce this band name, but I'll put it in the description. But this song is talking about recalibrating. Like a shift within us, right? But it's not as easy as flipping a switch, obviously. But recalibrating, think about the complexity of, if you're thinking about some type of mechanics or even technology, how meticulous you have to be to recalibrate certain devices. And on that note, let me show you something. I love to pick up random stuff. I told y'all I love just, I'm kind of nerdy like that. I picked up this old used book today because it was so weird. It says Dictionary of Clocks and Watches. And I flipped through it. And it's pretty cool. I just want to learn about the mechanics of this stuff. And let's see when it was first written. It doesn't even say. But I'll share more on this later when I get into it. But I flipped through and there was kind of some neat stuff in here. So you can find really interesting things in the most surprising places. It's like a treasure hunt. That's what I enjoy doing. So anyway. Okay, back to the music. So this other song is called Cellular Upgrade. And it talks about recalibrating, which can be an investment in time. You really got to have patience and you got to really want it, and you got to be willing to dial in. What you're doing essentially is you're getting yourself out of this muddy type energy field, if you want to speak that way. Okay, getting out of the darkness. I like visualization, so if I can kind of just imagine what this would be like, I imagine mud, and you're having to be really meticulous and specific with how you get out of it. That's how our mindset, trying to shift our mindset out of a dark place can feel to me. So yes, I thought that was a great descriptive word for that, recalibrating. She says, when the dark clouds come over me, it gets hard. It feels like I can't breathe. I rise higher than I've ever been. I look within and listen. Again, there's this inner guidance waiting for us to stop being distracted by all this stuff out there and to look inside, okay? And then there's all of this beautiful lyrics just over and over and over. And it's the energy of welcoming. I welcome love. I welcome harmony. I welcome peace and unity and joy and destiny. And it says, I welcome all of the beautiful things that are meant for me. Something being meant for you is destiny. And you've heard people talk about sometimes we get in our own way and stuff like that. So there's a story in this book. I don't remember. It was either in the first or second chapter. This man, it talks about he got let go from his job and he got really, really depressed. And so what he did was he just started drinking and got into drugs and everything. He really tanked. He just went to a very dark place, And so what happened was, not too awful long after that, I think, I don't remember the time frame exactly, but he got a phone call from this other company that he had always wanted to work at and work for. And they were interested in him, but they required a drug test, and he couldn't pass it. So see, he says something here, and I didn't mark it. Let me see if I can flip and find it real quick. He basically says he didn't sabotage this opportunity, really, just simply from the drugs and alcohol. He essentially sabotaged it because he lost faith that anything good would come from that, from being let go of his job. And so because he lost faith, then the actions he took were in alignment with that loss of faith. And then that sabotaged this opportunity. So see, what if we start to look at things like that, like things that are removed from our life, people that we've poured into and we've loved deeply, when they're removed from our life, when circumstances are difficult, can we, one, have the patience, two, commit to faith, which I think it takes a commitment. The Bible says, belief is really the key, but not just that. We have to not have any doubt. So it kind of has to be a very strong, unwavering type belief and faith. And so I thought that was really interesting. There's another story in here too about, let's see. Oh, I found it. He couldn't pass the drug test, so he never got that job. This is page 31. But the real reason he didn't get the job was that he had lost faith in the universe, cursing his misfortune, it says, for having lost his job rather than expecting the universe had something better in store for him. In reality, when he lost his old job, it wasn't a mistake or a misfortune, but a purposeful event. It was a graduation certificate that would allow him to move on to something better. He just didn't know it. If you and I were living in a universe that was not alive, conscious, and fully aware of us, it might be the case that things just happen. However, we are an integral part of a universe that is fully alive, fully conscious, and totally aware of us. A universe that provides exactly what we need to achieve our full potential. You are the universe, a part of it. And so he goes on. It's a cool book, really. He shares a lot of personal stories and things like that. Another story in the book is about a man that had a sandwich shop, and he was doing really well. Business was great for him, and he would give out like free stuff, to his customers, and it just worked. It worked for him. It worked for the customers. He had a great client base and all this stuff. So his son comes into town or something to visit, and he says, he's kind of just focusing on the economy overall, and explaining to his dad, like, you better not be giving out all that free stuff. It's everything's really bad right now. The economy's doing really bad. And he basically planted this seed of fear within his dad, and his dad changed the way he was doing business, and he stopped offering all this free stuff, and then everybody, stopped coming. He lost business because of it. So just something to think about. And there's an old saying, I've heard people say before, which is, in the South, we say ain't. And the saying is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, But it's easy when we go through especially horrible or trying times to want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater with all this stuff, okay? But the truth is, I don't think we should do that. I think that there's something to this. If there wasn't, then I don't want to limit it to one religion. I guess you would call it a philosophy. This mindset, this willingness to be open to a higher power, okay, is so unlimited. If this higher power is unlimited, and again, in the Bible, it's, God is the Alpha and Omega. That's pretty much, it covers everything, right? It's just A to Z. So if that's the case, then why would we take one situation and just throw all of this truth that has been preserved throughout centuries, away into the void and say, this is just not true now. I'm going to write all of it off altogether. What if we need a little bit more patience? What if we need another perspective? What if the Creator is trying to calibrate us just a certain way, in a certain direction, to a certain location, to a certain person, the person He has for us, the partner He has for us? What if, the calibration may be part of what we're experiencing as struggle and loss and hardship and, life being unfair and all that. It may simply just feel that way. Imagine the workings of a clock or something mechanical, a computer, all the parts or whatever it is. And imagine the technician working on that. If you are the part and you're being grasped and forced, and the parts around you maybe are no longer working, so they're removed, and we're experiencing that as loss, and new ones are putting in and they're unfamiliar and it's not what we're used to and we don't like it and it doesn't resonate with us, and we're being turned and there's pressure, we feel pressure, all this stuff. Imagine if you are that part, how that feels. But in the end, it's calibration, it's recalibration. It's just something to think about. And so I had so much more to share with y'all earlier today, but once again, one of these days I'll learn to write it down because I have forgotten. So if it comes back to me, I'll make another video this afternoon and share with you all. So that's all I've got for now. I hope that you have a beautiful day. If you listened all the way through, thank you so much. And I appreciate you being here very much. And I just hope that you have a beautiful day. And I'll see you again very soon.